Welcome back to the channel. Have you ever felt like there's someone in your life, almost like they were sent to sabotage you? That kind of person you trust, but then they make you doubt yourself, leave you feeling completely drained, or even worse, push you down paths you know aren't right. If that's a yes, you are absolutely not alone. And today we are diving deep into a super critical topic, drawing wisdom from the ancient yet incredibly powerful philosophy of Stoicism. We're going to uncover the 5 undeniable signs that there might just be a saboteur lurking in your own life. This isn't just about spotting toxic people. This is about protecting your energy, safeguarding your peace of mind, and most importantly, preserving your authentic self. I promise you, after this video, you're going to look at your relationships in a whole new light, and you'll have the tools to set strong boundaries that will truly set you free. Make sure you stick around until the very end, because that last sign, it might just be the one that makes everything click. Ready? Let's jump in. In today's video, we're diving into a heavy but important topic, 5 unmistakable signs that someone in your life isn't just draining, they were sent, and not by the angels. These are the spiritual Trojan horses sent to chip away at your confidence, hijack your peace, and leave you wondering if you're the one losing your mind. But once you know these signs, you'll see the manipulation for what it is, and you'll never unsee it. So go ahead, grab your coffee or journal, or maybe even a little holy water for this one. Because what we're about to uncover could save you from years of emotional damage and a whole lot of therapy. And if you're already nodding along thinking, yes, I know someone like this, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment that says, I see the signs. Let's shine a little truth on the darkness together. All right, let's jump into the first sign. Sign number 1, they encourage you to sin, not in obvious ways, but through subtle permission that feels like support, until it's too late. Look, none of us are perfect. We mess up. We slip. Sometimes we fall flat on our face and pretend it's part of the plan. But what truly matters is how the people around us respond in those moments. Real friends, people who walk with purpose. They don't celebrate your downfall. They hold up a mirror even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it is. But here's the danger, the ones who feel safe but aren't. They don't yell at you. They don't even argue. They smile, nod, and make destruction look like freedom. They're not rebels in leather jackets. They're charming, often polished, and they play the role of the fun friend. They'll say, I get you in a way that makes you feel seen, until you realize they were actually helping you hide. Their power's in the small nudges. They won't say, ruin your life. They'll laugh and say, relax, have a little fun. Say you're on a health journey, no sugar, no alcohol, early workouts. They're the first to tease you at dinner. Oh, come on, you're no fun anymore. They'll hand you cake, pour you drinks, and call your discipline boring or worse, selfish. Not because they hate you, but because your growth makes them uncomfortable. Let me tell you about someone. Let's call him Robert. Robert had a laugh that could break tension in any room. People loved him. He was magnetic. And when I was trying to stay sober, rebuilding my life one hard step at a time, guess who offered me a drink first? Just one. You've earned it. He bought it before I could even answer, raised his glass, and smiled like he was doing me a favor. That's not friendship. That's sabotage in disguise. And that's only the first sign. Stick with me. This goes deeper than you think. It all started off so casual, almost comforting. I told myself this was just friendship, a buddy looking out for me in his own way. But after one particularly rough night, a binge I had sworn I'd never repeat again, the truth hit me like a cold slap in the face. He wasn't helping me stay strong. He was quietly hoping I'd stay weak. Why? Because every time I stayed sober, it forced him to look at his own reflection, and he didn't like what he saw. As long as I was slipping too, he didn't have to change. This is the hard truth about certain people. They don't just tolerate your missteps, they feed off them. Your setbacks make them feel more comfortable with their own. That old saying, misery loves company. It's true, but it especially loves company that won't challenge it, won't grow past it, won't leave it behind. They can't face their own lack of direction, so they quietly work to keep you walking in circles with them. And the worst part, they don't do it with shouting or force. They do it gently. They disguise it as kindness. You won't hear them say, go ahead, ruin your life. No, they'll say it like this. Don't be so hard on yourself. And they say it right at the moment when you're on the edge of repeating a pattern you already promised yourself you'd break. It's not just about that single decision, it's about what it does to your foundation. Over time, your internal strength, your mental fortitude, it erodes. And once that guard is down, it's easier to justify the next compromise. And the next. Stoic philosophy has always reminded us of this. Your mind is your castle. Your inner world is your last line of defense. As the philosopher Epictetus once warned, no man is free who is not master of himself. These people, knowingly or not, are trying to get the gates to that stronghold open. If they can make you doubt yourself just a little, they can influence your direction a lot. And here's the twist, they're not always villains. Not the cartoon kind. Often they're people you love. They're your brother, your girlfriend, your oldest friend. People who've seen you at your worst and maybe deep down prefer you stay there. Not because they hate you, but because your growth terrifies them. It reminds them that change is possible and they're not ready for it. And they'll know just what to say, just what to press to make you second guess yourself. So how do you handle that? The Stoics wouldn't tell you to yell or wage war. They'd say, see clearly, drop the fantasies, stop making excuses for behavior that consistently pulls you down. You draw lines respectfully but firmly. You decide where your energy goes, which conversations you'll entertain, what temptations you'll shut down. And sometimes, yes, you walk away. Because guarding your peace, your character, your mind, that's not selfish. It's survival. I'm sharing this not to make you suspicious of everyone, but to make you alert. To help you recognize the people who seem most excited when you backslide. The ones who applaud your worst instincts and call it just having fun. Start there. Recognize the pattern. Because in the next part, we'll go deeper. I'll show you how to build boundaries that are respectful, clear, and strong enough to stand even when the pressure comes from someone you care about deeply. Just because you care about someone doesn't mean you have to follow them into darkness. That brings us to sign number 2. They invalidate your feelings and manipulate through deception. Did you know some of the most dangerous manipulation doesn't come wrapped in hostility, it comes cloaked in love? That's the part most people miss until it's far too late. These emotional games aren't always loud, aggressive, or obvious. In fact, their silence is what makes them so effective. This kind of manipulation doesn't slap you in the face. It slowly pulls the ground from under your feet. One subtle remark, one carefully worded question, one half smile that makes you question your own instincts. That's how it starts. And most of us don't see it for what it is. Instead, we second guess ourselves. Maybe we're just too sensitive. Maybe they didn't mean it that way. Maybe we're being unfair. Sound familiar? Think about the time someone said, "You're overreacting or you're imagining things." Little by little, it wears away at your sense of clarity. You try to speak up to explain your concerns about someone toxic in your life, and they don't just dismiss it. They make you feel like you're the problem. And they don't do it with rage or threats. They do it with quiet control. They tell you where to go, who to talk to, how to act, all under the mask of protecting you. The scary part. It doesn't feel like control at first, it feels like protection. I've seen strong, intelligent people, men and women in their 50s, 60s, shrink around someone who says, "I'm only doing this because I love you." They stop calling old friends. They avoid holidays with family. They stay quiet because bringing it up would just make things worse. Slowly, their life gets smaller. And the manipulator's voice, it becomes the only one they hear. This isn't just toxic, it's calculated. It's not about love, it's about domination. These people aren't satisfied with your affection. They want obedience. They twist reality until their opinions become your truth. Not with rage, but with false tenderness. "I'm only trying to help. You know I care." That's the game. And once you see it for what it is, you'll never fall for it again. After everything we've just unpacked about emotional manipulation, it's important to understand how that control slowly rewires your sense of reality. One of the most chilling effects of manipulation is when you start hearing phrases like, "No one else understands you like I do." At first, it may sound caring, like intimacy, but over time it becomes a mental trap. You stop pushing back not because you believe they're right, but because you're too mentally and emotionally exhausted to argue anymore. What's really happening is erosion of clarity of perspective, of self-trust. And this is exactly why Stoic philosophy is such a powerful antidote. The Stoics, especially Epictetus, taught that we must protect our minds as fiercely as a fortress protects its walls. He once said, "We are disturbed not by things, but by the views we take of them." And that's exactly what the manipulator is after not your love, not your loyalty, but your lens. They want to control how you see reality. And how do they do that? Slowly, repeatedly, intimately. They wear down your defenses until you start internalizing their version of events. You begin to doubt your own memory, your instincts, even your emotions. And soon you're not just living with them, you're living through them. That's the danger. But here's the truth, you can reverse it. The key is awareness, naming the manipulation for what it is. Realizing that just because someone says they love you doesn't mean they're treating you with love. You start reclaiming your strength the moment you begin to trust your own perceptions again, even when they try to convince you that setting boundaries is being cold or selfish. Because real love, healthy connection is built on respect and room to breathe. It's not about control, it's about collaboration. It's not about punishment when you disagree. It's about safety to be your full self. So if you're seeing these red flags in your own relationships, don't be ashamed. That's the nature of manipulation. It's invisible until it's not. Seeing clearly is the beginning of freedom. And in the next part, we'll dig into real actionable strategies for how to set boundaries that are respectful, but non-negotiable. Because protecting your peace isn't just wise, it's an act of love. Love for your future, love for your mind, love for the life you're meant to live. Now let's shift into sign number 3, sowing discord and creating division. Believe it or not, some of the most harmful people in your life won't be the ones who shout slam doors or make obvious threats. It's the ones who smile warmly, wrap their concern in sugar, and then whisper seeds of doubt about your closest relationships. These people are the quiet chaos creators. They don't light the match and set the fire, they just hand you the match and walk away. And by the time the smoke rises, they've already stepped back into the shadows claiming innocence. Their damage is slow, calculated, and dangerously effective. Let's continue where we left off, because the kind of manipulation we just talked about doesn't always come with control. Sometimes it comes dressed as care, as someone who calls themselves your biggest supporter. They position themselves as your rock, your sounding board, the one person who always listens when things get tough. You believe they're your safe space, someone who's always got your back. But the truth is, every time you confide in them, every detail, every fear, every slip of vulnerability becomes ammunition. They don't protect your secrets, they reshape them. They twist your concerns into tools, stir conflict behind closed doors, and somehow keep their own hands spotless in the mess they create. You'll notice they seem to thrive when there's tension. When people are divided, they step in like the voice of reason, placing themselves as the center of your emotional universe, the indispensable advisor, the only one you can really trust. But their damage isn't loud. It doesn't explode, it seeps. Through whispered doubts, through sly expressions, through perfectly timed questions that spark suspicion. You don't hear the fire alarm. You just wake up one day and realize your relationships are burning down. And let's be clear, this isn't harmless gossip or childish drama. This is deep psychological control. These manipulators wedge themselves between you and the people who matter. Over time, they become the lens through which you view your friends, your family, even your partner. They're not just spreading rumors, they're rewriting your reality. And their favorite targets, it's not surface-level friendships, it's the deep, strong connections, marriages, family bonds, lifelong friendships. Anything that threatens their control. Why? Because at their core, these people are insecure. They fear being left out. They fear being irrelevant. So they poison the well just to make sure everyone stays thirsty enough to keep coming back to them for clarity. They don't want harmony, they want dependence. They'll give you just enough comfort to keep you returning, all while feeding the very discord they claim to solve. It's manipulation wrapped in kindness, sabotage cloaked in concern, and what they feed off of your trust, your need for peace, your vulnerability. The Stoics warned us about this. Marcus Aurelius taught that the opinions of others must not rule us, that we must train our perception and guard it fiercely. This is where that wisdom applies. You must recognize these people for who they are even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. You step back and ask, does this person bring me peace or confusion? Do they help resolve things or seem to stir the pot just enough to keep it boiling? Are they supporting me or keeping me just uncertain enough that I keep turning to them for guidance? And here's the hard part. You don't win by playing their game. Don't try to outmaneuver them. Don't engage in their drama. That just keeps you tethered. The real strength lies in seeing the manipulation clearly and stepping out of it entirely. Picking up where we left off with those who divide to control you, begin to understand the importance of emotional clarity and distance. And that leads us right into a darker but equally subtle danger: emotional vampires. These people aren't easy to recognize at first. They often arrive in your life wearing a mask of kindness. Maybe it's a friendly neighbor, a coworker, a cousin who suddenly starts texting more often. They seem to appear right when you're most vulnerable: after a breakup, during a loss, in the middle of a personal struggle. They're quick to listen, quick to offer help, and they always say the right thing. It feels comforting, even divine. But what if that warmth is just the bait? The truth about emotional vampires is that they don't feed on your blood, they feed on your peace. Slowly, methodically, they draw energy from your insecurity, your pain, your openness. They learn your soft spots under the guise of caring questions. And before you know it, what felt like empathy starts to feel like exposure. You're being studied, not supported. I once watched this unfold in the life of an elderly friend. Let's call her Grace. After losing her husband, Grace was fragile, emotionally raw. That's when a man from her church began showing up, carrying her groceries, calling to check on her, offering endless small gestures of comfort. She believed she'd been blessed with a companion in her darkest hour. But slowly her world began to shrink. She stopped attending family dinners. She talked less with her adult children. "They don't get me like he does," she'd say, convinced he was the only one who truly cared. But behind the scenes, he was planting doubts, whispering narratives about how her children were selfish, how they didn't value her. He was isolating her, making himself the sun around which her world revolved. And because he never raised his voice or acted outwardly aggressive, it was nearly impossible for her to see the manipulation. That's the chilling part. Emotional predators rarely snarl. They smile. They don't barge in. They slowly become indispensable. Recognizing this behavior requires deep awareness. It means being honest when a relationship that once felt like a blessing starts to feel like a burden. It means noticing when your energy is being siphoned, not shared. And more than anything, it means trusting your instincts even when the person draining you insists they only want the best for you. In the next part, we'll talk about how to rebuild boundaries when they've already been eroded, how to find your way back to your own emotional center, even if someone close has tried to pull you off course. Continuing from what we just uncovered about emotional predators, some of the most draining, manipulative people don't announce themselves with red flags. Instead, they slide into your life wearing the perfect mask of compassion. They listen closely, not at the right times, and give you that warm, comforting sense that someone finally gets you. It feels like safety, like a home you didn't know you were missing. Over time, they become your go-to person, the first call when your day goes wrong, the first person you think to text when something wonderful happens. But behind the scenes, they're collecting pieces of you not to hold or protect, but to control. Each vulnerable detail you share becomes a thread they tug to tighten their grip. Their goal was never support, it was ownership. They don't just want to be a part of your life, they want to be the only voice you trust. As the emotional attachment deepens, their influence becomes more aggressive, but not overtly. They start to question your other relationships. Are you sure she really has your back? He doesn't seem to appreciate you. Suddenly, those who've loved you for years are cast in a suspicious light. You begin to second-guess your instincts. You feel guilty for reaching out to others. They frame independence as betrayal, and spending time elsewhere becomes an emotional offense. Emotionally, they create scarcity, an illusion that only they can truly understand or care for you. You find yourself apologizing for things you didn't do, walking on eggshells to avoid their judgment. You abandon your values to avoid confrontation. And here's the hardest part: while you're working tirelessly to fix things, they're only interested in keeping you off balance. The relationship becomes a black hole, one where your light dims the longer you stay. Stoic wisdom passed down from thinkers like Marcus Aurelius reminds us of this hard truth. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. If someone is feeding you a steady diet of shame, doubt, and confusion, It doesn't just wear down your patience, it stains your spirit. The solution isn't soft or sentimental, it's honest. You must ask yourself, how is this person shaping me? Do I like the version of myself that shows up around them? It requires a kind of courage not everyone is ready for. The courage to look past hope and face the reality. Some people don't want to grow. They don't want healthy compromise or emotional balance. They want power. And if being around them makes you feel small or anxious or unworthy, it's not love, it's manipulation dressed as devotion. The most loving thing you can do for yourself, and even for them, is to walk away. To reclaim the mental space that existed before their influence took root. That's not just survival, that's liberation. And in the next section, we'll break down how to do exactly that. How to set firm boundaries that protect you without turning you into the very thing you're trying to escape. Because the truth is this, you weren't born to tiptoe around toxicity. You weren't made to simply endure. You were meant to thrive free and fully alive. Fear doesn't always arrive with a bang. Sometimes it seeps in slowly disguised as concern. In the last part, we explored how emotional predators isolate and control by draining your spirit. Now let's look at another kind of damage, the kind that comes from simply being around someone who radiates fear, anxiety, and dread, like it's the air they breathe. You don't have to be an anxious person by nature to start feeling it. Spend enough time around someone who constantly imagines worst-case scenarios, who spins every conversation into a potential disaster, and you'll find yourself absorbed into their vortex of fear. It's subtle at first, a small hesitation here, a flicker of doubt there, until one day you look in the mirror and realize you don't feel like yourself anymore. What's so dangerous is how quietly it happens. You might think your increased caution is just part of growing older or being wiser. You might even convince yourself that this cautious, doubtful version of you is just how life is meant to be now. But in reality, that shift in spirit, that quiet surrender, is often the product of external influence carefully injected over time by someone who thrives on control, not love. These people don't wave red flags. They don't stomp in with obvious malice. They enter softly cloaked in phrases like, "I just want to protect you," or "I'm only being honest." They may be friends, a close relative, even a partner, the ones you trust most. And under that trust, they feed you their version of the world, one filled with fear, suspicion, and self-doubt. Their advice sounds helpful at first, but instead of offering clarity, it becomes a drip feed of fear. They highlight every possible danger, every way you could fail, every flaw you might have missed. You share a dream and they respond with 100 reasons why it's unrealistic. You open your heart and they cast shadows on your hopes with logic. Before long, you're stuck in analysis paralysis, unable to move, because every path feels like a trap. They don't want you to be cautious, they want you to be compliant, to second-guess yourself, to look to them as the authority on what's safe and wise. And if you're naturally empathetic or conscientious, you're especially vulnerable. You'll hear their warnings and give them the benefit of the doubt. You'll hesitate to call them negative because they label themselves realists. But make no mistake, they're not offering reality. They're installing fear, one slow whisper at a time. This isn't harmless pessimism. It's emotional manipulation masquerading as care. These people create a psychological cage, locking you in with ideas about how dangerous the world is, how fragile you are, and how you couldn't possibly succeed without their constant guidance. Your dreams become smaller. Your courage erodes. And worst of all, you forget that you ever had a bolder, freer version of yourself. The Stoics warned us of this exact danger. They said, guard your thoughts as you would a fortress. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." In other words, the ideas you allow into your mind don't just influence you, they become you. And if those thoughts are saturated in fear, anxiety, and self-doubt, your life will begin to reflect that, shrinking your potential and stifling your peace. So if you've noticed yourself living smaller than you once dared, or feeling more afraid of life than inspired by it, take a hard look at the voices you've let too close. Are they really keeping you safe, or are they keeping you small? After everything we've uncovered about how some people slowly twist your thinking, let's turn the spotlight even sharper. Ever stop to ask yourself, is this person really helping me grow? Or are they keeping me small, scared, and tied to their opinion of me? That's a question that takes real courage to ask, because sometimes the answers aren't just uncomfortable, they're devastating. You start to see the truth. Betrayal doesn't always come with a knife. Sometimes it smiles and says it's trying to protect you. The Stoics never told us to harden our hearts or close ourselves off. What they taught us is much more powerful. Build a fortress around your mind. Choose who gets access to your inner world. Ask yourself, is this warning being given to help me stay grounded or to stop me from ever stepping forward? Am I being protected or quietly paralyzed? These distinctions matter. They're the difference between truth and control, between concern and quiet domination. You have every right to trust your judgment. You're not selfish for protecting your spirit. You're not cold for deciding who gets to speak into your life. You are the guardian of your own mind. So let's talk about building that kind of emotional muscle, how to stay open but not naive, grounded but not frozen. Because the goal isn't just to exist in a fog of fear, it's to live with full clarity, free, intentional, and rooted in truth. Let's get brutally honest now. If any of what we've discussed sounds like your reality, if it stirred a gut feeling or brought someone's name to mind, then it's time. Time to stop excusing the people who are draining your spirit like emotional vampires on a binge. You're not here to be someone's emotional landfill or spiritual hostage. You're here to live love and lead your own damn life without someone constantly whispering doubt into your ear. Seeing these manipulative, soul-eroding patterns for what they are is the beginning of freedom. That moment where you finally say, wait, this isn't love. This is control. That's power. That's clarity. And if this message hit you in the heart or woke something up in your chest, hit that subscribe button and let me know which sign spoke loudest to you in the comments. Let's build something real here, a place where we call out this manipulative nonsense and stand for each other. Because once you truly see the game they're playing, you never have to fall for it again. Keep your eyes open, keep your mind clear, and I'll catch you in the next video where we keep exposing darkness, one laugh and one truth at a time.